Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to I Hate Rock Music. And today I'm going to do a video where I'm going to brag some more. And people seem to like some of these old stories I tell on some of these videos on my channel. So I'm going to do a few more. And this one's kind of a fun one. The night I got drunk with Motorhead, and I was a mere 24 years old. I was involved in the local punk scene here in Seattle. And I went to the local music magazine then, the Rocket, 1981. I said, hey, I'd like to go down and interview Motorhead. And they said, sure, go down there and interview. We'd love to post something like that, publish something like that. So it was really funny. I went down to the Paramount. This was the Bomber tour. And I just went to the door and I said, hey, I'm here working for the Rocket. I want to interview Motorhead. And they just let me in. I didn't have to show any credentials or an ID or anything. So I was surprised at how easy that was. So I went in and I watched the amazing show. Like I say, Motorhead, the Bomber Tour in 1981, and they were incredible, incredibly loud, and all that. And then after the show ended, I just made my way over the stage and said, "Hey, I'm here to interview Lemmy for the Rocket." And so they let me in, and I got taken downstairs to a basement room in the Paramount, and it looked like a little bunker, obviously from well over 100 years ago, and just a brick room with practically a dirt floor and no windows. And I go in there with my little tape recorder, and Lemmy comes in. And so at that point, I think Lemmy was in his 30s, and I was 24, but I looked like I was about 16. And so I think he found it pretty laughable at first. But then we had a discussion for about an hour and a half, and he was surprised at how much I knew about his history and Hawkwind and High Tide and the Pinkberries, and we discussed all that kind of stuff. And I taped the whole thing. Unfortunately, all these years, I've since lost the tape, and I'm really bummed about that. But the whole time, he cracked open a bottle of Jack Daniels, and the whole time I'm interviewing, we're passing back and forth this bottle of Jack Daniels. So I got Lemmy spittle all over my face. And before I knew it, we'd pretty much polished off the bottle. And it didn't even faze him, of course. He continued to just jibber jabber and act like normal. And I kept feeling it more and more and more. And pretty soon I was pretty drunk. And then after about an hour and a half of talking to Lemmy, um, Fast Eddie Clark and Filthy Animal Taylor came into the room. They'd obviously been drinking already. They came in there. They had another bottle of Jack Daniels. So pretty soon, we're all sitting around, three guys in Motorhead and this little punk kid. And at that point, it just got to the point where we kept passing the bottle back and forth. I was just totally smashed. Those guys handled it perfectly well, but they were having a lot of good laughs at my expense and teasing me about how young I was. And did my mom know I was there and all that kind of stuff. And Fast Eddie Clark and Filthy Animal Taylor obviously were about half as drunk as I was. Lemmy was still standing completely coherent, and he was having a good time laughing at those two guys, laughing at me. And so it was pretty hilarious. And I didn't even realize quite how drunk I was until I stumbled out of that room. And my car was parked across the street, but I ended up hailing a cab because I could barely stand and I was totally cross-eyed. And in fact, on the ride home, I had to have the cab pull over so I could puke out the door. And then I got home and nursed a terrible drunk. Had a hangover the next day, but that next day, I was amazed that I just spent well over 2 hours with Motorhead, getting fucking drunk. And so yeah, I transcribed the tape and handed it into the Rocket, and then it was funny because they published it, but they only published about 4 or 5 paragraphs, and I was really mad that out of all the things I asked Lemmy about and what a great interview it was, because he was very talkative and he told me everything I wanted to know, that they only used a small portion of it. So anybody out there, I've downloaded a copy of it. but I could only get the headline and not the meat of the interview. But if anybody out there has a Rocket dated, I think October or November of 1981, there's an interview in there with Lemmy by Brian Fox, but no mention of the fact that I got totally fucking wasted. And so over the years, I've been able to tell certain friends about that night, and of course, they think I'm a god that I got to get drunk with Lemmy. And so now here I am making a video of it and bragging about it. And for me personally, it was definitely a legendary night. And I fucking loved Motorhead and still do. And what a wild night. And so I got to frolic with some rock stars in my day, usually involved cocaine. Didn't usually get drunk, but I didn't touch Jack Daniels again for probably another year after that. But what a great memory. And you know, especially after Lemmy passed, I really reflect on that night and smile to myself because it was pretty hilarious. So there you have it. The night I got drunk with Motorhead. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.